From The National, this is Trending Middle East. I'm Yasmin Al-Taji. It's Wednesday, June 11th. Here are today's headlines. Europe is increasing pressure on Israel. The UK sanctioned 2 senior members of the Israeli cabinet. Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir and Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich will both face travel bans and financial restrictions. Here's The National's Thomas Harding with more from London.
The UK government and its allies, Canada, Australia, New Zealand and Norway, have gone from being on relatively good terms with Israel to friendship that seems to be all but over after sanctions were imposed on 2 of the hard-right Israeli cabinet, 2 well-known names, Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich, who are types of Israeli cabinet ministers who have called for annexation of the West Bank and Gaza, have called for essentially ethnic cleansing of Palestinians out of Gaza. Well, finally, after huge pressure from Labour, the British government seems to have led the way in calling for them to be sanctioned and carrying that out on what it calls in the joint statement an incitement of violence against Palestinians. It is quite a diplomatic break and breach, with the Israelis saying this is outrage and unacceptable.
UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy has been more critical of Israeli actions in Gaza recently, and last month imposed sanctions on 4 settlers in the occupied West Bank.
We have been absolutely clear. This has to stop, and we stand for a 2-state solution. And the settler violence that we've seen in the West Bank particularly is entirely unacceptable and must stop.
Both sides now will be heading into a broken relationship where they will find it difficult to come back together again. And it raises the issue of, does next week Britain take an even more incendiary step and recognise a Palestinian state, an incendiary step in terms of the Israelis being outraged by it, but it is somehow feared now that the Brits are being pushed into a corner and they will take that step, maybe alongside France.
This comes as Israel issues new threats to Houthi rebels in Yemen. The Israeli Navy attacked docks in Yemen's Houthi rebel-held port city of Hadya on Tuesday, striking sites that are critical for aid shipments to the country. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has threatened a full blockade on the Houthis in the case of any more attacks on Israel. It's a significant escalation. The National's Hadya AlAlawi explains.
Now, this is the first time that we've seen or heard Israel threaten a blockade on Yemen or on the Houthis. They've attacked them multiple times, but they've never actually threatened a full blockade. Whether that's possible to implement by Israel is a completely different story. But this is considered an escalation in the tone of threats between Israel and the Houthis in Yemen.
Iran says it could strike back at Israel in the case of an Israeli attack. Iran's top security body said it had obtained intelligence about Israeli nuclear sites and could launch counterattacks. Israel has repeatedly warned it could attack Iranian nuclear plants, particularly if U.S.-Iran talks were to collapse. This comes at a critical moment for Iran. The UN's nuclear watchdog accused Iran of previously hiding nuclear sites.
The board requested me to provide a comprehensive review on many things, including how they have cooperated.
And Iran is in the middle of faltering negotiations with the U.S. on a nuclear deal, talks that escalation with Israel could interrupt. A candidate for New York City mayor could be the first Muslim to hold the seat. Zohran Mamdani is a Muslim socialist hoping to become the city's next mayor, currently a Democratic member of the state assembly, and most polls show that he's doing well, but not quite dominating the primary race taking place at the end of this month. Here's The National's Cody reporting from Washington.
Most of New York, and soon potentially the world, might soon be aware of Zohran Mamdani. He wants to be the next mayor of New York City. That's the biggest city in the U.S. And if elected, he would be the first Muslim to hold that office. Now, making matters more interesting is that at this time in which the Democratic Party is doing some soul-searching about what direction to go in, Mr. Mamdani, who is currently in the New York State Assembly, considers himself to be a democratic socialist. He wants to freeze the rent prices in New York City to help lower the cost of living. He wants to implement universal daycare and childcare throughout New York City, and he wants to improve and make free the city's busing system. Much like Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, also a socialist, he often talks about increasing taxes on the wealthiest 1% of New Yorkers to help pay for all of these plans and improvements.
The New York mayor runs one of the largest, most populous and complex cities in the U.S., and the office has been marred with controversy in the last few years. Mamdani is currently polling behind former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who resigned in disgrace amid several scandals in 2021. Current Mayor Eric Adams was charged with bribery.
But he still trails behind the former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who is also running to be mayor in the June 24th Democratic primary. That said, it's a really close race. If he wins on June 24th, he will likely be on the path in November for the general election to win that election and therefore become the first Muslim mayor of New York City.
That's all for this morning's headlines. You can get these stories and follow live coverage at our site. Yasmin Altaji, The National.